I'll call the City Council URA joint work session to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mayor Benetti and Councilor Stevens are joining us online tonight. The next item on the agenda is public comment. If anybody has a comment that is not on the agenda, please come forward. Jim, you're raising your hand.
I actually talked to one of you guys earlier today and then had to go to another meeting. So I get the point again for this, and I don't know why I get picked as the point man, but I do. All right, so we're going to do some good things here. First of all, where I live, had the lowest amount of property crime over the holiday that we've ever had. Thank you. All right. We had a couple of things, but we've hardened our houses. We've got quite a bit of cameras, more people leaving lights on. We had one incident where something did happen, but they left their car unlocked. But overall, it's the least amount of November, December, and January crime that we can recall, which is pretty substantial. The second thing is our city does a very, very poor job of explaining a few things. And one of them is how many housing units you've been involved in. Okay, people don't know that you bankrolled some of the Tioga. They don't know that you put the housing for medical workers downtown, those 10 units. A lot of people don't realize what I think the term is affordable housing is when you did the fire station project. And they also don't understand the cost overruns when that project was done with COVID. Okay, which blew the suggested rents up. But overall, the city does a very poor job through no fault of their own. They have a lot of things going on, but you need to blow your own horn. Okay, 16,000 people, and how many housing units have you helped get done? It's quite a bit. Plus, you've got some stuff in the works. The stuff out at Inglewood. That's a colossal pain in the rear if you didn't realize it. You had a brownfield, you had to go through the county, you had to give people, county had to give the dirt to you, you had to find a vendor to put the houses up. Pretty substantial. All right. Now we'll get to the bad part. This is 1/10 of my paperwork for Chapter 17, which is short-term vacation rentals. 1/10. Okay, I figure it cost you guys at least $20,000 in staff. Okay, 16, 14 meetings to get a compromise. I'm hearing wind out of the Planning Commission that they want to revisit that again. All right, and if you have any sway with the Planning Commission or can make a polite recommendation, it's a compromise. We don't like it. They don't like it. So that sounds pretty damn fair to me. Sorry for my French. I just finished talking to a bunch of people. If you don't want to compromise and open it up, you didn't have a firefight. All you did was hit a tripwire. Okay? That's all you did. We didn't challenge it in LUBA. We didn't go into court. We didn't go after past vendors that operate it in our neighborhood. Okay? We said, okay, we'll see how this works. The city's holding up their end. They're inspecting. They've denied some permits. People trying to play with the homestay rules. I think we're at around 39, counting the stuff that's pending. So, I mean, you have a 75 cap. That is a pretty good cap. That's pretty fair. It represents what a lot of other communities are doing. You're not out in left field. I personally would like to see a ban. Practically speaking, I'll take a compromise. Your current Chapter 17, I think that's the title you have for it, is a compromise. If you don't want to have a compromise, we can have an all-out firefight. Okay, we will literally do everything we can to get an all-out ban. And we have the governor going to declare housing emergencies like crazy. Okay, so I really think that that issue needs to be left alone and see how it goes. Right now, it seems to be going fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, and thanks for patting us on the back before you beat us up. Appreciate it.
Perfect timing, brother.
Jim, I would like to, first I want to thank you. You're a very informed citizen, so you know about some of those housing projects that the city of Coos Bay has focused on. And I think you know that Councilor Kilmer and I specifically are really focused on communications. And so the Coos Bay update that comes out every Friday, I think there are 5,000 people, close to a little under. I round, I'm in marketing, right? So 5,000 people out of our 16,000 citizens that participate in that. We also have meetings. We go to the Wednesday Business Connection. We go to the Rotary Luncheons. It's posted on Facebook. As someone who has worked for the Mill Casino for 27 years, communication is really difficult to get out to people. And I think the city, while you might call it poor, I think that they do a great job. And I think that I'm thrilled that you're out there advocating for us and letting people know about the good work that's being done. Can we improve? Absolutely. I think we're all still scratching our heads to figure out what that looks like. And so I appreciate that feedback, and I appreciate you being out there making sure that you're telling people about the good work that we are doing with our housing starts. So I just wanted to comment and thank you for that, and also remind everyone online and in this room that we do have ways in which we communicate to the citizens, and the citizens also have a responsibility, if they want to know that information, to be engaged.
And to share that information.
Is there any
Rob?
other? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
So Jim, thank you again. I'd like to hire you as our PR person, but I can tell you also that one of our goals is to have a PR person. We were going to contract out with somebody. Do you know where we're at with that, Nicole or Roger?
So we actually have a previous staff member who is working on expanding our social media platforms that we report on. She's also working in conjunction with our consultant we already have with the newsletter to kind of coordinate some of those stories. We're still kind of working on that first. We just have a short-term agreement with that individual to see how this works and if we're getting out there far enough before we go further. A PR firm is obviously a great choice, but when we have someone from the inside who already knows Coos Bay inside and out, it feels like we've got that learning curve already passed. We don't have to teach somebody about Coos Bay before they start speaking about it. So we're giving this a go-around first.
So just to follow up with Jim, as Councilor DeNova said, we are doing a good job, but we know that we need to do better and try. And so this is one of the ways that we're trying to do that. Second of all, Roger, is this short-term rental going before the Planning Commission for review?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, because I agree with Jim. I hope it doesn't. I think we need to leave it where it's at, and unless it's broken, bring it back to us. But at this point, I think it's doing a pretty good job. So, okay, just curious.
I will check into that in the morning.
And I guess I would just add Chapter 17, I believe, is development code, so it's a little bit more encompassing than... Development code. Yeah, so they may be looking at Chapter 17, but whether or not they'll be tweaking that. Yeah.
Well, they can tweak it, but as long as there's no reason to tweak short-term rentals, right? Even if that's part of that code.
We'll look into it and report back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there any other public comment? Anybody online? Doesn't look like it. We'll move on to item number 3, review of the upcoming City Council and URA Board action items. Item 3A is discussion and review of annual road report. Greg, is that you?
Good evening.
Hi, Greg.
Oh.
How's everybody tonight? Good?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. So as part of the 2023-2025 council goals, staff has prepared an annual road report for the fiscal year 21-22. This is the first issuance of the annual road report, which is intended to provide details related to the funding sources that are dedicated to the road repair and improvement projects, an overview of the projects completed during the fiscal year, and a list of projects planned for the subsequent fiscal year. Council Goal 3J states, provide the council with an annual report listing street maintenance and improvement projects completed, accounting for funds received and used, and list the planned projects for the upcoming fiscal year. This initial report, which includes those required elements, along with photos of projects and descriptive details of the various funding sources dedicated for road improvements. So attached is the first road report for you guys to review.
Thanks, Greg. I have one question. So it looks like, if I'm reading this right, we've spent about $8.3 million on road construction and sidewalk improvements in the last 2 fiscal years. And I'm just curious, how much work is it to quantify how many lane miles we've completed?
How many lane miles does that equate to? I don't have that information right now, but I can get it for you.
I just think it's important to share with the public. I mean, we're spending that much money and how much money that covers, because I don't think people understand how expensive the road repairs are.
Sure.
Anybody else have any questions for Greg or comments?
Thank you for the very thorough report. I did want to know how we're going to Jim's point, how are we going to share this information out with the citizens of Coos Bay?
Sure. So we put together Friday updates, kind of patting ourselves on the backs of the projects that we do, as well as we do some outreach, as well as just letting the folks know where their dollars are going.
So we could put this report then up on the website and people could take a look at it if they wanted to know more information.
Sure, I hope so.
Great, thank you.
And this is just a report that discusses what's been done to date. There's still some stuff planned for the spring.
Correct.
When the rain maybe tapers off a little bit.
So this is the 21-22, and so this is a report of what's already happened, and then we've got the projections. I think it's a little bit further in the report,
Right.
where we have those projects listed that we're going to be completed in the 22-23 fiscal year.
And if you had to summarize, are our dollars that we're spending on road repairs going as far, no pun intended, as they were before? Or is it a little more expensive to get the things that we're repairing fixed?
Well, construction costs in general have gone up exponentially, and then also we do have certain ADA requirements that we have to incorporate into each project, and so those do carry a cost. And so when we're doing the calculations or doing the estimating for those projects, we do have to take those under consideration.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
You know, just a simple visual that might be helpful as we show the community what's been done with the roads. I remember we have a visual somewhere that was the map of the city with little tags on the priority of each road. If we had the original and could check off the ones that are done, and it'll still show the chain of priority for those remaining, that might be good for the folks that are scrolling through their feed and might just see the image.
And also what's been added to that list in the years, because I know as staff is going around town, they're finding places that, I mean, that they're having to address. So it might be good.
I remember when asphalt first started getting torn up, and there was the discovery that most of our roads don't have road beds. Some of them had dead trees underneath the pavement.
It's pretty exciting what we discover.
Greg, are we still putting up, I think we made a number of signs saying your tough dollars are being used to fix this pothole or fix this road. Are we still using those on a
Yes, we
regular
are.
basis?
Yes, we put them as you're coming into the project site. It'll be posted on this side of the road, the project dollars.
Okay, and I'm going to put you on the spot because I challenged you at the last meeting. If you remember correctly, now I have to remember the question that I asked you. I think, how much of pipe from the 1920s do we still have in the 90 miles of pipe?
Well, I haven't had an opportunity to dig into that too deep yet,
Okay.
but it is still a question that I'm asking to try and get those answers. I'm hoping that the answer is very little.
Okay, yes, we'd all like that, I think.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great report.
Mayor, do you have anything?
I just appreciate the report. It's very detailed and great. So I got one question, Jim. You had mentioned we came on 2016 that we were so far behind, it would take us, I forget how many years, to get us up to a certain level that you felt was manageable. So I know we've done a lot. I hope that we have cut into those years in some fashion, hopefully by half or more than half. But anyway, any idea?
Well, as I recall, I said take maybe 35 to 50 years to get through the backlog, and I would say we've probably made a good 5 to 10 year dent in that number of roads, or those years.
Thanks, appreciate it. Well, we're getting there.
I would just add that this is a far different conversation than we had when the Streets Task Force first began to meet in 2014, when we were battling with how are we going to fix our streets when we only had $50,000 to $80,000 a year. And now we're to the point that we can prepare an annual report to properly show the citizens not only what work was done, but what revenues came in and what revenues went out, and to show them what you promised, in that some of those funds were protected and were only going to be used for doing street improvements and not for adding staff or being spent on other things. So this report is intended to be very close or akin to the annual urban renewal report, to be able to show people how those funds are being invested in our community.
Thank you, Roger. Anybody else have any more comments?
It's great to see this work being done. Love it.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Get this report, and it's great to see that we have some tangible results from the work we've done.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for pulling this report together.
Next item 3B is quarterly update of 2023-2025 council goals. Nicole?
Yes, thank you. So in January, the council met and had a goal-setting workshop. And from that workshop, a draft version of these goals was put together. We brought that back to you at your February 21st, refined a little bit, and those goals were ultimately approved. We also discussed during the workshop that there be some sort of regular update provided to you on where we were at with those goals. And tonight is our first quarterly update. Attached to the staff report is a different look to the goals that you've previously seen. It's a tracking document, so there's a little bit different fields there. But it allows you to see all of the goals, what projects we've taken some action on, as well as what next steps might look like. We've also included a column to indicate if there's staff assigned to that. One thing I think you can see from that, there's some repetitive initials that you'll see there. So although we have roughly 130 employees, there's like 10 to 12 folks who are handling these projects, because the rest of those employees are frontline staff doing the daily work to keep the city running. So when you look at this document, there's just a number of people who are really kind of helping these walk forward. We could walk through some of these if you want. I could highlight a few of them that I think are, Greg just presented one. We get to check off now. We finished that task. It's been presented to you. We'll just talk maybe about a couple more of them. One of the goals is working well together, speaking to beautification of our community. We just followed up with an event at John Toppet's. I think we had over 100 volunteers participating in that. That's a pretty significant group of people. We thank the Oregon Bay Area Beautification Group for organizing and kind of pulling that together. Firefighters produced hamburgers for the day, hot dogs. So that's one example. I don't know the number of garbage that we pulled out of there. Somebody might know that.
21 cubic yards, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so
That's a lot.
pretty big deal.
2,100?
Kind of moving down, the next goal is working with key partners. We just had a meeting with the port. The mayor, Mayor Benetti, Roger, and I met with them and had some conversations about how those meetings might continue. We're looking at that quarterly. Working down into infrastructure, we are right on the verge of starting with Plant 1 Phase 1 updates. We expect to go out bidding this spring. The annual report for roads is on here. I'm going to get to check that off. Parking lots, we expect to be bidding those out. The one that is at 3rd and Central and Front Street. Hopefully get some action on those very soon. And then in parks, I think we talked about this at the last meeting. We've been done some work there at the boardwalk with the lighting, the flagpoles, the brickwork. And then moving into the library location. Hacker was just here, presented the 4 sites. I think that was a pretty good representation of some options. We are working with the survey consultant. We'll start getting together a group of people to look at questions that are appropriate for that survey. Then I think maybe the next thing I would talk about is our work in the addressing housing and homelessness. We've had some meetings recently with some partners we're hoping to bring to the table, both Advanced Health and Salvation Army. Those conversations will continue. I know the police department is working on the abandoned shopping carts ordinance. We expect to see that in May coming to you, hopefully as a draft, to maybe make some headway there. And I think the last thing, the only check mark we have on it this time is the council goal tracking. It is included on the agenda, the staff reports, so you'll see that. It'll be referenced by the goal number on the staff agenda reports. And then we'll get to check this next time that we did our first presentation, and then the next presentation is also on here, so we'll get to check that as well. So a lot of great work, and we appreciate you guys working to get us a list to work with. So
We're not overworking staff, are we?
not yet.
Thank you, Nicole. Anybody have any comments?
I just
I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate it. So thanks, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Agreed. It's nice to see the tracking.
Yeah, this is really interesting to look at. Everything that goes into these council goals is pretty impressive.
And I guess I should have added too, we'll also put this on the website. So you have the goals out there. We'll always keep the most current version of this out there so people can track if they're interested.
Well, if we're going to put it on the website, I did want to ask then on the working well together. I think we had already spoke when I had proposed back, I think it was 2 years ago, that we acknowledge Heritage Month, Native American Heritage Month, that we also address not just Native Americans, but there's Black History Month, there's Women's History Month. I just see it says consider. I think we as a council quite some time ago actually agreed to that, so I don't know if that has to come before
Change the
council.
word.
I would change it to say we said we were going to do it.
Actually, every year it comes before you, and you as a body consider to approve it. So that's why the wording is there. It's not whether we consider as staff to ask you to do it. It's really going to be you to consider approving it.
I just assumed once we've said do it, we're just doing it on an annual basis. Is that not correct?
Yes, but you still have to approve it every time.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Well, thank you, Nicole, and thank you to the staff for all the work you're doing to meet our council goals. Next item agenda is 3C, discussion and review of city manager succession plan. Roger?
Yes, and this too is a council goal. It has been my sincere pleasure and honor to serve the city as your city manager since late 2009. March 33-year association with the city, and I began in early 21 to begin talking about my pending retirement and my desire to look at some type of succession plan. Those that have worked for me and know me know that succession planning is a priority and has been in my administration. I have been fortunate to work not only with a great council, but an amazing staff. And staff that have been picked and prepared, some who worked in other positions when they first started, but have ascended through the ranks. It is a hiring priority. When we look at someone, we're not just looking at someone who can fill an immediate opening. We're looking at someone that we hope will move up in the organization and take leadership roles. During my time in the city manager's office, I've had the opportunity to place 8 different department heads in there. And I'm not ashamed, I'm really proud of the department heads that we have. Some who started in very different positions. I think Jim is the only one who was in his position when I started. But like myself, Jim is looking somewhere down the road for his retirement, and we're considering who amongst our staff will be the next to rise to that position. In 21, I talked to the council about a possible succession plan. The council was supportive as we moved down this road, and this is an opportunity to not only share how it's going, but to gauge the willingness of the council in moving forward. It is certainly not my role in picking my replacement. That is the sole responsibility of the council. It is the council that chooses the city manager, and then through the city charter, the city manager's empowered to hire the remaining staff and to administer the day-to-day duties of the city. We are very fortunate to have a very capable rising star within our organization, and that is Nicole. And I know this will be uncomfortable, Nicole, and probably as comfortable for me as when I had my evaluation. Probably the day I would always like to be gone. When we began looking at that, we began looking at, okay, how do we prepare, and I would not even say a diamond in the rough, how would we polish the diamond we have and make her ready for your consideration. One of the things I said early, you know, you probably need to get engaged with a service club, and I gave her a couple of possible examples. I said, well, Zonta or Rotary. And she's constantly an overachiever, so she joined the both. I talked to her about, well, what about the Northwest Women's Leadership Academy? I saw that come across my listserv. She applied, was accepted, and completed that program. I might have also said, you might want to think about finishing your MBA with an emphasis in public administration. She did that as well, or she's working on it as well, and she did that all about the same time. and is on track to complete her MBA later this year. We have given her increased responsibilities. As you know, when this plan was initially rolled out, we talked about moving her away from the finance department and putting her in the administrative or the assistant city manager position. And we put her as the principal contact for both the finance department and the library. Our plan is to add the fire department in beginning of this next budget year, and Public Works in January of 2024. She, in addition to some of these things, she's also been the coordinating person for bargaining with our unions, first with the Coos Bay Police Officers Association and currently with the fire department. She's also overseeing the overhaul of the website. She's in charge of IT, and also assisted with the changeover of our agenda software, plus taken on a number of other projects. I am confident, and my recommendation is that an internal candidate would be an appropriate choice. I would be remiss if I didn't share that the two longest serving city managers for the city of Coos Bay have both been internal candidates. And the two most recent short-term ones were ones that were done on international searches. Other examples of successful internal candidates, one would be Dr. Patty Scott at the college, who has been serving about the same amount of time as I have, and she was an internal candidate. And then our past school district superintendent, Brian Trindle, was also an internal candidate. And under his administration and with the direction of the school board, we have several new schools that have been built. With that, I'll leave it for your discussion. And I would suggest if this still meets with your pleasure, that maybe the next step is to begin talking about putting together a potential contract for the new the person to succeed my position, but to take effect in July 1 of 2024.
I just have one question. Do you sleep? I mean, that is a lot.
I think everybody here at the city puts in a lot, not just time, but we put in a lot of thought and feeling, and it isn't just a job. I mean, that's the thing about this group of people is they aren't just here for a paycheck. And you just, if you were here every day, you would see that. And that's partly due to Roger and the department heads he's put in place to bring those people here. But we kind of all are in the same boat. Yeah.
It's our home,
Yeah.
and it shows.
Do we have any other comments?
Well, I just had a few questions. I agree that we have an excellent internal candidate that I would like to see placed in ultimately the position of city manager. If I understand correctly, the cost, if we were to go out, can vary between $40,000 and $60,000 if we were to go for a national search. And it seems it would be irresponsible of the city, given that we do have a candidate in-house who is so qualified and competent. But I just wanted to verify, Roger, is that correct? Is that about the price range?
When I went through and did some searching when I was in the position of an interim city manager and I was assisting the council at that time, the cost, and this is $2009, was $18,000.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that it would be that high. And they're not all successful. Some are.
Yeah.
But I think the fallback for the council is to remember that the city manager serves at the pleasure of the council. If the council were to go down this road and determine somewhere later that either the the future city manager or the council thought this wasn't the right mix, then that's always an option, and you're not out one.
I think we've also had examples in both cities where the city manager has been hired with a national search, and it has been really unsatisfying, I think, for all parties involved. So what I really appreciate is the fact that Nicole is an internal candidate. She does know the departments. She does know the lay of the land. She does have the relationships that are so crucial in my mind for getting good work done. So I just, my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Mayor.
Rob. So first of all, I like the succession plan. Thank you, Nicole and Roger. I understand both of you have worked on this. I have been through both hiring internally and also hiring on a national search, and I can tell you the national search was a disaster. I would recommend that we proceed with Nicole as the incoming city manager. Roger will be on until July 24th, 2024. So my question to Nicole that I had with her is, I asked her if she wanted a contract or she would be working at the pleasure of the council, and she said she would work with the pleasure of the council, but I would also like to ask Nate to get with Nicole and draft up a contract, maybe that ICMA has or something similar to that, or OCCMA, and come back and let the council review that. As Roger mentioned, serving at the pleasure of the council, then if for some reason, and I can't see what that reason would be, if Nicole, maybe she left, I would say, let's put it in that perspective. Then we can go out and look for somebody else, or maybe look at another internal candidate. Also, I thought it was important that when Nicole was put into the interim city manager, that helped the city develop more, gave Roger some free time to do some other things that was important, and economic development was one of his forte that, as we can see around the city, has worked very well. So my concern is that we keep that position in some fashion, and Nicole has told me that she would like to keep Roger on as an economic development individual. Roger, my understanding is that you've agreed to that. We don't have a contract in place. I guess maybe that would be also a time to ask Nate to draft up something that for in July of 2024 that we could look at doing. I just want to make sure that Nicole expresses those positions or those concerns to the rest of the council besides myself. But I think it's important that we have that in place.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, I appreciate that you have put both Nicole and Roger on record. So let it note that it's March 27th, and it looks like Roger might transition to the economic development position after his retirement of city manager.
Part-time.
I was going to ask if we can veto the retirement, but it sounds like you won't pull it off.
So with the succession plan, will this formally come to the council then for?
My suggestion would be to have Nate proceed with drafting a contract, and it will be the approval of that contract which will be your ultimate approval.
I feel like, you know, we've been aware of the process and we've discussed that openly in public session. But I think it would be good at some earlier stage to have a conversation with the public and make sure that they are aware that this is the direction that we're headed, if that's a consensus to do so.
I agree. I think we've been really transparent in the process and making sure that we're transparent going forward, and that everyone understands that this isn't something we just decided.
Yeah.
Right? Nicole was placed in that position. She has all these incredible qualifications. She's worked on her MBA, a number of different things.
Mm-hmm.
I think, to Roger's point, the contract coming back, I think that serves as transparency. I'm not sure, Councilor Kilmer, if you're looking for more than that, but I feel like we've been pretty transparent with the community about this.
Well, I think this is what we do, but to Jim's point, I think it's important that we communicate that in other avenues rather than just in a meeting that there's consensus to move forward with this, that we have been in a process and that, I don't know how you
Yeah.
would term it. I just, you know, you're not gonna reach everybody, but we do our best. Nicole is perfectly capable, and I know that she's had many encounters with the members of the public, and I'm sure that they're, you know, they're satisfied with her role in that. I just want to make sure that people are on board where we're headed.
Yeah, just to follow up for transparency, I think it's really important for the council to think about this. And, you're listening to a few of us, but I think all of you need to think about this is the way you want to go. Just because there's 3 of us at this moment saying this is the way we want to go, I think it's important that everyone on the council feels comfortable with this. And for transparency, we could go out, as Councilor DeNovo said, and do a national search, and Nicole would participate in that, I'm sure. And in my mind, we would just be spending dollars, I'm going to put it this way, wasting dollars, because I believe Nicole would still come on top. But if council feels that's necessary to do, for whatever reason, I think that's available for us also. So I think it's important that we all are on board and feel that this is the way to go. So a decision by everyone doesn't need to be done today. It's just, this is a notification, I think, Roger and Nicole, of how you would like to move forward on this succession plan. I support it. I think it's the way to go, but I think everyone else should feel the same way, or feel comfortable, so.
Thank you, Mayor. Anybody else have any comments?
Oh, I can see Stephanie's point. We've addressed it a lot of times in these meetings, but for the sake of clarity for the public, sometimes we've got to put a really clear label on the conversation we're going to have. Because if you just see succession plan roll through your news feed, it may not be as clear as looking at internal candidate.
Thanks, Drew.
I think I just want to go on the record in saying that I feel comfortable and confident in Nicole's capabilities and our decision to hire the best candidate. And I really appreciate Roger's direction on helping with this adjustment and change in roles. And honestly, in terms of explaining to the public what kind of work has been done and what went into the decision, I think Nicole's resume really speaks for itself. She's here and has been extremely supportive of the city in so many ways and continues to grow and learn and strive to make things better for this council and for the city and for her team. And I don't think that there's going to be anybody that can argue with her accolades. So I'm fairly confident in our going forward and explaining our decision. I don't think it's going to be hard at all, but I do think it should be as transparent as possible. So I'm all for explaining and celebrating in the decision to move forward, at least on my behalf.
Thanks, Carmen. Sarah, did you have anything?
Yeah, hard to beat what Carmen just said. I ditto everything. I have all of the faith and trust in Nicole. I've seen her just shine in the community and be a great advocate and leader for the city. So I'm on board with the plan.
Thanks, Sarah.
And I want to make it clear that I am on board with that plan as well.
Yeah. You went
I just want to make sure that the public is aware.
I really appreciated Councilor Matthews' comment about the most qualified person for the role, and I agree that that is indeed Nicole. I also would like to ask, has this city ever had a female city manager?
Yes, one interim, but not full-time.
Great. Wow, that'll be nice to
Joyce
see.
Jansen
that.
served as an interim for 6 months.
Okay, thank you.
She did.
Well, I'll just say, on the city committees that I serve on, I think I've had a chance to sit in on meetings with both Roger and Nicole and just about all the department heads. And it's clear that Roger's built a culture here of hard work, of teamwork, and I'm confident that Nicole will carry on that culture, and I think that's a big part of what we should be looking at. And I'm also confident that Nicole will do a good job, and it would be disappointing if we didn't choose her and she went on, because she's going to get this job somewhere, so it would be disappointing to see her move on somewhere else and be successful for another city when we had her right here. So I'm fully on board with this, and Roger, if I ever get a change jobs, will you write my letter of recommendation, please?
Yeah. I'm going to tap you on the shoulder for that, too.
And that's all I have to say on this. Anybody else have any further comments? Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
And that completes our agenda. Does anybody have any counselor comments?
I do. I have spent a lot of time walking on Front Street, celebrating all the great work that the City of Coos Bay has done and looking at all the development. And I was just walking last Sunday, and it was so nice to see Front Street Provisioners full and the food truck court full. And I notice on my walks that there are a number of semi-trucks parked on Front Street, and they're not associated with the businesses. And it would have been nice to, it would, really, I'm going to be direct. I would like the council to consider asking staff to bring back an ordinance to limit the number of semi-trucks parking on Front Street. There are 2 trucks in particular that I continue to see back and forth, and it's in prime parking location. And I feel like there's other places that the trucks can park in the city. I also think it's unfair to the businesses that we've asked to move their trucks off Front Street to park, and there are just these other semi-trucks that park there. And I think, Roger, I had asked you about this. I think a truck can park there, according to our ordinance, for 72 hours. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yep. So, and this was on a Sunday, and I've seen the trucks on Saturdays and in prime time. So, I don't know how how the rest of the council feels about it, but I would like us to consider moving forward with an ordinance or having staff put something together
So
for us.
are those trucks just being parked there and then somebody's picking up the drivers and taking them home somewhere else, or?
I think Roger has a bit of information on this.
I actually happen to have a son that works in the trucking industry, so I know this is not uncommon. But when those long-haul drivers aren't working, they find a place to park their truck. Front Street at one point in time didn't have a lot of business, and so that was an easy place to park a rig and leave it. And there was at one time a business that did not long hauls, but chips and other things, and they would park their excess fleet on the street. That's changed. They're not there anymore. So this is what's happening, is we have people that are, when they're not driving their truck, are parking it in locations where there is enough room. There are other streets in Coos Bay where that will work. One example would be 6th Street behind the Red Lion or next to our wastewater treatment plant. There's a number of empty lots that are down there which don't require customer parking. So there's probably more appropriate places you could limit an ordinance excluding trucks on that, parking on the street in that one section of Front Street. And we could draft an ordinance if that was, for your consideration, if that was the direction of the council.
I always wonder if this couldn't be abated by communicating with those truck drivers that there are alternate locations.
I think a downtown business owner has contacted them. In fact, there was a couple of them that contacted them.
And it's the 2 vehicles are still being parked there. One of them is from Walla Walla, Washington, and I was born there, so I see that truck all the time, and it drives me crazy.
I'm just wondering, when we do Front Street, is that going to affect the ability of those trucks to even park on there? Is an ordinance?
No, I don't think so. And you need to remember, we asked Ready Ice to remove their trailer off Front Street. I think the chief can chime in on this, and they don't park it there. So I think it's unfair, as Councilor DeNova mentioned, we're asking others to not park that have businesses there, but then we have these other trucks that are parking there and don't have a business there. And on top of it, it's pretty dangerous. I walk that frequently. Carmen drives it frequently. I think getting access in and out, there's no sidewalks, so it's hard to walk on the street with those trucks, and also it's hard to drive on those streets and see around it. So it's it's not kind of dangerous. I think it is very dangerous
I
for
think
traffic.
while we go about making an ordinance on that one, we might also check in with the industrial businesses down there, just as we craft the verbiage, so we can make sure that whatever we do make doesn't have unintended consequences for their operations.
Good point.
You could, but I can tell you, I know most of the businesses right now. Knutson doesn't have any semis like that. The only one that has any semis is a truck repair, but they have enough parking. They put those inside their lot, and they lock the gate at night.
Yeah,
So
they should still check. They could be independent contractors. I used to work in trucking too.
I think what you're saying, Councilor Farmer, is making sure we communicate with Front Street, because if we're going to put an ordinance down there, just letting them know that, you know, they've done their due diligence and been supportive of the development in that area, and so we want to consider this ordinance to remove trucks, not necessarily theirs, but other trucks that are parking there.
Yeah.
And I also believe that we should inform the truck drivers that are parking down there that this is coming up, because they haven't made any attempts to move, and we're monitoring it. You know, seems like those kind of conflicts are why we end up with these ordinances and things, and it is a conflict with what's happening down there, so it has to be addressed somehow, and
Yeah.
it hasn't been, sounds like,
And-
the kind way.
And we're talking about overnight parking. We're not talking about a semi that comes in and unloads paint like they do for Wayne's Color Center or carpet or any of those type of things. We're talking about overnight parking, are we not?
Yeah.
That is correct.
When you're doing a drop, if you arrive too late, you gotta stay overnight sometimes to unload first thing.
But it sounds like these are there for multiple days.
Indeed.
Over a weekend, like
Yeah.
they're coming in, or,
Is that consensus?
It is from
sounds
here.
like we have to.
Yeah, the one that you might notify is Holiday Motel or Best Western. They used to have some truck drivers that stayed overnight and parked there, but I haven't seen that lately, and I think they've asked them to park in their lot, and I think they've done that. So that would be one that I would notify, I guess.
So maybe we want to contact the motels as well, because it's quite possible that they're using the Best Western or Red Lion.
Global.
I think there's other hotels in the area that have truck parking too.
You could even check with the other trucking companies to see if they've got space on their lot and would be willing to let guys park there. I mean, there's plenty of places.
Again, walking that area so much, I mean, it's easy to get hit because we don't have that multimodal path completely outlined. So, I mean, I've walked it enough that it'd be great just to get those trucks off there for that reason as well.
I've walked it too. I'm not denying that there isn't an issue. I'm just saying I like to keep people informed if we're gonna, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that it's not necessary.
Oh, no, I wasn't implying that you
okay.
were. I'm
All
just
right.
making another point to
Yeah.
drive the point that I really would like us to consider an ordinance.
Got it.
I don't think you actually need consensus, do you? If
No.
she wants it on the agenda, then put it on the agenda, right?
Well, I think,
Draft it.
yeah, I think that's the easier part. Anytime it takes a substantial amount of work by staff, that's more than 15 minutes requires approval, or not approval, but consensus of the council to move forward. We can always put something on the agenda, but it sounds to me like we can actually go ahead and start the work and then bring it back to council for consideration.
Agreed.
So do we have consensus?
It appears you do.
I think so.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you have anything else, Councilor DeNovo?
I think that's enough for tonight. Thank you.
Anybody else have any more comments? All right. There being no further business, I'll adjourn the meeting.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
They're done before
Carmen,
the
so
old
good to
normal
see
meeting
you in
started.
the flesh.